Okay, so welcome everyone tonight. We're happy to see you for the PD that we're having to classroom management. My name is Trevor Fall, and I'm the president from TESL, Manitoba. And we have lots of different people I can see on the screen, so thank you for joining us this evening. I'm going to begin with the land acknowledgement. And as I was reading, I've often looked at one institution in Winnipeg where I'm at that has specific wording. But as I was looking at different land acknowledgements, I'm going to actually be combining two uh, tonight. So I'm going to just welcome all of us and acknowledge that where this is, um, many of us are located in Winnipeg, which is on the lands of the Anishinaabe, the Innuwak, the Anishinaabe, the Dakota Ote, and the Denisule, and the national homeland of the Red River Métis. We recognize and honor Treaty-Free Territory, the Shoal Lake 40 First Nation, which is the source of Winnipeg's clean drinking water. And in addition, we acknowledge treaty territories, which provide us access to electricity we use in our personal and professional lives. And we want to honor these lands and waters and dedicate ourselves to reconciliation and partnership, both today and in the future. So again, we would like to welcome those of you who are joining us here tonight. So we have three different experienced teachers who are going to be sharing about how they're managing classrooms and different tips and tricks that they have learned. And then there'll be a time for questions as we go to the end with that. And so without any further commentary, Alexis, I'll ask if you want to start sharing with us tonight.
Sure. Okay. Um, I just need to share my screen, so I put in a request.
Oh, okay. Um, Let me just. Okay. So I did not see a request pop up. Let me just see if I can. Okay. So Irina, I'm going to make you post, and then you can provide that because I'm operating uh, on my end, I'm not able to do that. Um, yeah.
Alexis, you should be good to go.
Yep, perfect. Okay. Uh, let's see. Hey, perfect. It should be working now. Okay, hello everybody. If you don't know me, I'm Alexis, and I work at English Online with Blaine, Yini, and Irina. And English Online is fully remote. So I teach them drop-in remote classes that are groups. And also I teach link home study classes, which is when you work one-on-one with the learner. So for both of these programs, I have experience teaching stage one learners remotely. So that's kind of what I'll be focusing on today. Um, so I think it can be a little bit daunting teaching stage one online because of their limited literacy in technology. But what I've noticed with most learners that I've taught at least is they do have some basic knowledge. And if they don't, they're really motivated to learn more. So, for example, when I teach stage one link home study classes, I mainly communicate with my stage one learners over email. So, the stage one learners that I've taught had basic email knowledge, like replying to emails and adding attachments. But for our first class together, when I first start teaching the students, I love to give them a little refresher on just the different parts of an email. So I've included these two resources, and I'll even put them in the chat. Let me see. Okay, so they're in the chat, and it just gives information about um, the basics of how to write an email with formal and informal examples, which I think is so important for stage one learners to actually see examples. And then the other resource gives some practice worksheets on the different parts of an email. And it even includes a PowerPoint slide on the basics of writing an email, which I've used a few times in my classes, and the learners really appreciated that. So, yeah, those are two resources I like to use for communicating with email. And then for our classes, we usually meet on Zoom. So that's the program I use. And when I get a new learner, I always send them an email with the Zoom link at the very beginning of our classes together. And when I do that, I always make sure that it's a recurring meeting. So make sure to click weekly when you're setting up the Zoom meeting so that you can use the same Zoom link every time. So they can click on the same link. They don't have to put a password in or anything. Super simple. So I always send them that in an email right away. And then when it comes to giving them their resources, like the class slides, their homework, I really like to use Google Folder. So I'll post everything from our classes on there, and it helps keep everything organized and all in one place. So I always teach the learners at the beginning of our classes how to use Google Folder as well. But it's pretty simple. So when I get a new learner, I send them a link um, with an email, like a link to their email of their Google folder. So they can click on the same link every time and be able to access their Google folder. Um, yeah. And I've also noticed that a lot of my stage one learners don't have like a computer sometimes. They don't have Microsoft Word. They don't have any programs like that to complete their homework, or they're not able to send me their homework as a Word document. So that's why Google Folder is really great because they can actually use Google Docs right on there to complete their homework. They don't have to send me anything because it'll already be on there. And they can do it on their phone as well. So if you have learners on their phone, they're able to actually use Google Docs straight from their phone. So it's a lot easier, I find, for that. So that's kind of how I do things for stage one with my Link Home Study classes where I'm teaching one-on-one. But then for my drop-in classes, I teach a reading and writing class. So I teach a stage one group, and I also teach a CLB 5 and higher group of learners. So I thought for my stage one classes for reading and writing, I could just share some of the stage one resources that I use for these classes. And most of these resources I actually get from the Winnipeg Public Library. The best location I find is the Millennium Library because they have the biggest EAL section there. There's tons of books to choose from, so I highly recommend checking out your local library if you can. So the first set of books that I've used for my reading class, they're called the Blue Delta Biography books. So there's a ton of different biographies you can choose from. But they have a lot of Canadian people, which is great to integrate into the classroom. So usually for these classes, we'll read one chapter together. I volunteer someone to read. And after each page, I just ask them some comprehension questions that we answer together as a class. So I've really liked using these books. Another two sets of books I've used is this one, Dead Man's Island, which is an Oxford Bookworms book. And I've also used the Sherlock Holmes, which is a Penguin Reader's book. So for the Oxford Bookworms book, I think these are great graded readers for stage one because, first of all, it includes lots of pictures. The books come already with pre-discussion questions and discussion questions. Like they're already written for each chapter, which is so helpful, saves on lesson planning time. And there's also a free teachers website, which I will share as well in the chat. Oops. Um, there we go. Oops, not that. Yeah, so this free teacher's website for the Oxford Bookworms book, it has a bunch of resources like tests, some of the answers to the questions in the book, and it always has free worksheets. So all of that is free on the website. So that's what I love about the Oxford Bookworms books. And same with the Sherlock Holmes one I read with my students. It's a Penguin Reader's book, so it's similar because it includes lots of pictures. It also includes the pre-discussion and discussion questions for each chapter. And same thing, it also has a free teacher website. Same thing as the other book. The website includes the same resources, the discussion question answers, tests, and also some extra worksheets. And for the Penguin readers, it also includes the ebook on the teacher website. So if you can't get to the library, they have uploaded all their books on there. So I'll put that in the chat too, the website. Okay. Yeah, and the nice thing about the Oxford Bookworms and the Penguin Readers is they're all graded readers. So you can pick a book based on the ESL level that your student is at. So there's tons of stage one books, but there's also books for higher levels too. And then for my writing classes, when I'm teaching stage one learners writing, I think the most important thing to teach is just basic sentence types. That's a really good base to start with. So I'll teach them things like just writing a simple sentence, then adding on compound sentences, complex sentences, and then punctuation. So there's these three resources here. I'll also put it in the chat that I love to use for teaching my writing classes that go over those three topics. I've used all these resources before and they're really awesome. Another resource I've used for my writing class is this book here, also available at the Millennium Library. And it's called From Reading to Writing by Lynn Bonesteel. And I really am enjoying this book so far. I'm using it right now for my writing class. So each chapter is a theme. So the current chapter I just taught today actually was on cultural rules. So I'll show some examples of how the book looks. So each chapter starts with pre-discussion questions. And then it goes over some vocabulary that will be in the reading. And then the learners will read the paragraph on the topic. And then the next page just has some discussion questions to reflect on the reading. And the chapter also has writing practice and exercises based on the reading. So the first chapter went over just writing simple sentences, the subject, the verb, and the object. Then the next chapter will just keep adding on to the writing topic. So I found that to be very helpful. And I think, yeah, this book is great for stage one learners because it has reading and writing practice. And it goes over the different structures of writing different sentence types, which I think is super beneficial for stage one learners. So yeah, those are all the resources that I thought I would share with everyone. That was everything. And I can also attach this PowerPoint in the chat as well if anyone would like a copy. That's it from me. I'll stop sharing now.
Thank you, Alexis.
Hi,
Yeah,
you're welcome.
yeah, and feel free to share those resources with me, and maybe we can figure a way to share it with everybody. Yeah,
Okay.
thank you. I believe Blaine, were you the next one?
I can go. Yep, I'm
You're
ready to.
welcome.
Irina, can you hear me fine? I'm working on a different computer than usual.
Yeah.
Can you hear me fine? Okay, perfect. All right, and can I also share? Okay, I'm going to share my screen as well here.
Okay, let me make you a co-host, Blaine.
Okie
Just a
dokie.
moment here. Okay.
So maybe I'll introduce myself, Irina, while you do that. So my name is Blaine Roberts, and I've been working with English Online for a long time, since about 2010, when I first started teaching English. In my time, so I've been working full time teaching online for probably about the last 6 years, and I was part time before that, and I was also a substitute teacher at River College and a teacher at MITT. So I've had some experience teaching face to face, and a lot of experience now teaching online as well. So today I'll be talking about stage one classroom. What was it now again? Teaching strategies for a stage one class. And I'm just going to share my screen now.
Blaine,
I
you should
think
be good to go.
good to go. Okay. Okay, so I'll bring up I've only got a few slides for my PowerPoint. Can everyone see this?
Yes.
All right. Okay, so stage one classroom management strategies. So the first thing I've learned, number one, is so there's two big things I learned. Number one is never assume they understand. And I'll tell you really quickly an experience I had. So when I was going through my practicum and when I was volunteering, I was working with CLB4 class. When I actually began teaching, I was teaching a CLB2 class. So quite often throughout the classes and at the end of the class, I would say, "Do you understand?" So most people shook their heads. So I was assuming everything was going fine. Now, in that class, most of the people were very quiet, except I had one student that was a little bit more interactive with me than the others. And so throughout the first 2 weeks, our topic that we had based on the needs assessment was family. So we were doing family. Everything was going fine. Everybody was understanding everything until about 2 weeks in. And my strongest student came up to me and he said, "Teacher, everything is fine. I love your classes." But then he said, "But what does family mean?" And I was like, "Oh my!" I realized, wow, he didn't So I'm thinking, even if my top student, like my most interactive student, didn't understand, how much did the other students understand? So we can't assume that people are understanding. So we need to check that they're understanding. That's really important. Here and there's the different ways that we can do that I'll be talking about today. So that was number one. Never assume they understand. And point number two is another thing, be aware of their effective needs. Being aware of their effective needs. And effective needs, and I'll give you another example that I had. So I had a student, and he was an older student. He was a little bit on the quiet side. And I remember thinking, oh, I wonder what's going on with, but I never really got to know him too well because he was really quiet. I did ask him to write like at the beginning of every session. And I think this is one thing that we should do is get them to write a paragraph about themselves, because quite often they will tell you some things that they're comfortable sharing. The thing is, though, sometimes they won't. Sometimes there might be other things going on in their lives that they're not so comfortable sharing. And in this case, I found out afterwards, once I really got to know him, we actually went for coffee. And he explained to me that he was from Iran, and he was a refugee. And when he left Iran, he was one of the top brain surgeons in the world. He had actually written many books. And it's funny because he showed me, even though now he seemed very like kind of shy and meek, he showed me some pictures of himself. And he looked like a different person. And even when we were having coffee and he was explaining and I was like showing real interest in him, he just seemed different. He was much more confident. He seemed more happy. So I think that one of the things that we need to be aware of is the affective needs, because being aware of people's affective needs means that the student will feel safe. They will feel safe. They will feel respected and appreciated. They will feel confident, low anxiety, and if once they get all of these things, then they can feel motivated to learn. If they're feeling unsafe, if they're not being respected, if they don't feel respected, if they're not feeling confident, and they're very nervous about things, then it's going to take away their desire to learn. Not only their desire to learn, but even their ability to learn, because there might be some of these situations at home. There could be major financial problems at home. Maybe the student, if they have children, maybe they're having problems at home with their children. So if we are aware of all of these things, we can, maybe we can't do all those things, but if we are aware of those things, then we can at least direct them to where they can go to get help. Earlier today, I was talking to Alexis, and she mentioned a place. I don't have the link for it, but it's a place called Aurora. And it's a place where they can go and they can get a lot of their effective needs met. So these are two things that I thought were really important. Number one, never assume that they understand everything. And number two, being aware of the effective needs of your students. So now I'm going to quickly go into some strategies that we can use in a stage 1 class. Okay, so number one, and we can actually do this I think we can do this in a face-to-face class, but even with the help of AI, with ChatGPT, for example, we can also do this on the computer as well, in a remote class as well. So number one, and again, this all goes down to all of these things goes back to meeting the effective needs, because it's all about building up the confidence of the students. And once the student starts to feel really confident, then it opens the door to future and better learning. So number one is that we can use real objects, of course, called realia. So we can bring in actual items like a cup or a phone or certain types of foods, and that will give instant comprehension. We may try to explain what something is, but if we can show a picture of it, or if we can actually, if we're online, or if we can actually bring that thing in, they will instantly understand that thing. Sometimes we try to explain what a cup, well, I guess explaining a cup is pretty easy, but there might be some other things such as certain foods that we can try to explain, but they don't have the comprehension. It might be difficult, but if we can show them a picture, a really good picture with AI or with objects, it will help them to understand instantly. The other thing that we can do, and again, this goes back to building up that confidence, is TPR, which of course is total physical response. So in other words, students physically respond to certain actions like stand, sit, walk, and point. So we can often do this, and we can get them to repeat. So instead of saying repeat and listen, we can get them to repeat and do. So it really promotes the doing of the action. And this, when I was thinking about this today, this is kind of how, when we are growing up with our first language and our parents are instructing us to do things, they would often show us. They did not explain to us with words all the time. For example, tying our shoelaces, they would never write a paragraph and telling us how to tie our shoelaces. They would show us how to do it. So we can show them, and then and we can get them to repeat. And then when they, for example, if we say, oh, stand up, open your book, write your name, and we see them doing it, then we can see for sure that they're understanding. So that goes back to my point one about never assume that they understand. But here, when we use TPR and we can see them doing it, then we can know that they are fully understanding it. Point number 3, we can use pointing and labeling activities. This, I remember when I first started learning Spanish, it was really difficult for me. So I had a book, it was like a picture dictionary, and I would look at the book, and it did help me seeing the pictures. But then later on, I would forget. I would think, oh, what was that again? But then someone gave me an idea to label things in my apartment. So I would label my bed. I would label the mirror. I would label my toothbrush. I would label the closet. I would label foods. I was labeling everything. Now in stage 2, we may not need to do this, but in stage 1, we can do this. And I think it's a really good way to get our students really immersed in the language. So everywhere they look, they can see, oh, okay, so that's what a ceiling is. This is what a table is. This is this is a book. And so it really helps them to get really excited and really into the language. And again, I think it kind of goes back to how we learn the language as when we're first learning the language, this is how we learn, getting immersed into the language. Okay, that was 1, 2, 3. Let's go on to number 4, 5, and 6. So the other thing too, point number 4, is to create strong classroom routines. So for example, we might begin the class with a greeting. And again, that will help them to get that thing, by repetition, whatever we are trying to learn. For example, if it's saying, hello, how are you, for example, by getting them to repeat those things, it really gets it into their minds. This helps us to review, right? And then it produces new language, and then we can practice and repeat. I remember one time, we were going through some grammar point. I can't remember exactly what the grammar point is, but I do remember that I thought that I had taught the topic properly. But then later on, 2 or 3 weeks later, somebody came up to me and said, oh, teacher, can we go back to this again? Because she said, I completely forgot. And that was a reminder to me that we can't just teach something and then move on. I think we need to go back to it, and we need to practice and repeat. And lots of review, I think, is really, really important. We know that when we are teaching about simple present, we can use it for so many different things. We can use it for talking about our daily routines. We can even use it for talking about future, for example, taking a taxi, taking a plane. And we know that because for many of us, it's our first language. But for our students, they might forget those things. So by going back and practicing and repeating again and having that review, I think it's a really great way to, again, we want to solidify the learning. Point number 5 is to use pair work with clear structure. For example, we can give sentence frames such as, my name is, I am from. My name is, I am from. And then we can take those 2 things and get them to go around the room and speak with different learners. This is a great way for them to, again, to solidify the learning, and also to meet new people in the classroom, and again, building up that confidence. And I think that when they build up that confidence, that they feel respected, and it can really help them with their effective needs. The other thing is, when we are writing on the board, or when we're writing on our PowerPoints, is to write in large font, very clear, and write minimally on the board. In other words, too many things on the board can make the students feel overwhelmed. So again, that goes against, by keeping everything very minimal, clear, and large, it can help them with their confidence and help them to feel, again, with their effective needs again as well. So that was 4, 5, and 6. Let's take a quick look at the last 4 points. Okay. Point number 7, again, going back to what we said earlier about repeating things. So repetition drills, and this helps keep things we want to keep things very short and very lively. We can mix it up, we can whisper, we can use a loud voice, and we can use like different techniques. We can go fast sometimes, slow sometimes. Going fast, let's say, for example, if we are, well, one game I'm thinking of, and usually when we're talking about this, we can also use a lot of games. And this really helps. Many of you are aware of the game, I think it was called Broken Telephone. So this is one way to use like a repetition drill, using different games that we use on a regular basis, where we are doing different activities, different techniques, going fast and slow sometimes. And it helps to keep the class active and out of their chairs. We know that if we have a 3 or 4 hour class and the students are sitting for the entire time, it can get very, very tiresome. But if we get our students to stand up and move around, it's going to keep the class very lively and very awake, because we know how tiring a long class can be. Point number 8 is that we can use picture cards and matching activities. So when we look at point number 9, again, and I've mentioned this earlier about checking understanding. When students are matching, for example, matching words and pictures, that's one way that they can show their understanding. And we can say, okay, for example, if we've got the word is kitchen, and we got a picture of a kitchen, and then they match, we can clearly see that they're understanding. And again, by, most people are visual learners to some extent, and this helps them. It's an easier way to learn. And again, we can see it's a great way to check the understanding. So point number 9, check understanding through action. So just like in point number 8, when they're matching those pictures with the words, we can see that they understand. And it's all done by action, not by explanation. So that was my problem. That was my challenge when I was teaching the stage 2, was when I was checking for understanding, I was explaining things. And instead of saying, do you understand? I could have said, show me that you understand. For example, if we are talking about like open the notebook, I can go over and I can say, oh, please open your notebook, write your name, say hi to your friend, and so on. So by doing these things, instead of saying, do you understand? It's a way of saying, show me that you understand. And point number 10 is encourage the use of, okay, I'm just going to go over this point. Okay, so in other words, clarifying things. We know that when we are dealing with stage 1, we need to clarify lots of things, like ask lots of questions. So one way that we can do it again is to get them to repeat things, going back to like show me, get them to show you that they understand, clarifying. And now sometimes the students will need clarifying too, so be aware of that. Be aware that they might ask you to repeat lots of things. So be aware that we might need to repeat lots of information as well. And again, this goes back to reviewing, like lots of review and so on, I think is really, really important for stage 1. So those are the 10 tips that I've learned. And my two big points was do not assume that people understand and really be aware of the effective needs. So I'm just going to stop sharing my screen. And I wonder if there are any any questions or comments before I end.
Thank you, Blaine.
Thank you so
So
much,
maybe we
Alina.
can
Thank
let
everyone.
everyone to think about, right, and reflect. And then in the meantime, we can pass it over to Ini. Ini, uh, should you share your screen?
Uh, can you hear me well?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
great. Yes. That's fine. I jot down some notes, so I don't need to share my screen. So I will just talk through some tips that actually kind of echo what Blaine just shared. For example, like the strong classroom routine. So before I go into the tips, just a little bit introduction about myself. My name is Ini Som. I'm also working for English Online as Blaine, Arena, and Alexis. I'm also teaching in the Lincoln Study Program, which is 100% online and also one-on-one based. So for my stage one learners, I do notice there are a couple of strategies that I found is really helpful to engage my learner and to help them to build the confidence to overcome the biggest, or I would say the first barrier for them to be able to say, okay, I can talk, I can get my idea across. That's a big boost for my learners. So the first one that I want to share that is as as I mentioned before, as also Blaine talked about it, that is create a strong classroom routines. So what I do, I want to share with you one of my learner, uh, her story. So she's a stay-at-home mom with 5 kids. So you can imagine how busy she is every day, that she's busy at cooking, she's busy at organizing her children's activities. And when we started the first class, she didn't turn on her camera. And when I asked her, I did my self-introduction about the program, asked her questions. Most of the time, they were silent. And then the best cases, she would say yes, no. So we did needs assessment, and I get to understand a little bit about her situation and circumstances, and then I started to ask her this question. So I thought that she since she's a stay home mom, and she has children. Then I asked her, "What do you do this coming weekend?" Then she started to use vocabulary, single words here and there. Oh, my children or my boy, soccer. She was started this kind of uh, individual vocabulary here and there. So I got it. So I help her to say the complete simple sentence, and then she kind of got it. So oh, I will, or I my children will play soccer. I bring them to the park, like this simple sentences. And I keep repeating this question for almost 3 months, for the first 3 months, every class for the first 2 or 3 minutes. So we have a small talk before we move on to the language focus part. So she probably already used to that. Then the first question was, "What did you do last weekend?" Then she started to use vocabulary, single word here and there, and then she started to be able to build a nice sentence. And then she started to increase her accuracy in using past tense. And then I keep asking, okay, what will you do this coming weekend, next weekend? What will you do in your summer vacation? Then we get more and more vocabulary. She become more and more confident, and she becomes so confident. She's so ready that for that question. When she joined the class, she's so ready that okay, I'm gonna bring my kids to the park. I will bring my kids to the swimming classes, and then I would ask, oh, which child is it, your older boy or your younger boy, your older daughter? You know, she started to get understand about how to use the pronoun and the verb agreement. And little by little, through these similar questions, she became familiarized with topic vocabulary, simple sentences, tenses, and the most important is that I can see her happiness, her satisfaction, being able to express herself and get her ideas across. After she became confident, she mastered this topic. We moved to her next secondary favorite topic, cooking. So at the end, she taught me how to cook her favorite dish, zigni. So we started every week say that, okay, what did you cook this week, last week? What are you going to cook this week? And then we practice the verbs for cooking: chop, stir fry, saute, and also the common vocabulary for food. As you can imagine, every time when we get started, I feel like she was prepared, and then she's already able to uh, jump in the small talk. What did I cook this week? What I'm gonna cook this weekend, and what I'm gonna do for my children this weekend, right? So I can see that having these routine questions, or I can say the repetition, not only she quickly built up her confidence to talk, to express herself in English, but also boost her interest, and also expanded her vocabulary. Furthermore, we're in a very nice circle to be able to help her to express herself in English. And this is the first tip, that is using build up classroom routine, or you can say repetition for stage one learners. The second tip that I've noticed very helpful, especially for online English classes, that is focus on one online tool at a time. Wait until give allow your stage one learners some time to be familiarized or to be comfortable using this tool to do their homework or to practice their language skills before we're moving on to the next one. For example, I have my classes on Teams, and we use also Google Dot. We have also some exercises completed on Ally, and we also have exercises on our Lincoln Study LMS, Learning Management System. And sometimes we also introduce tutela activities based on the topic. So as you can see, there are many resources and tools, but I found that I would stick to one, especially at the beginning. I would stick to one tool that if we are practicing writing, I would just stay with Google Dot at the very beginning until we move on to the next platform or tool. So yeah, that's what I found helpful, because for the first couple of weeks, she was not submitting her homework, I've noticed. Then then I started to ask her, and then try to understand what was the reason. And then it turns out she didn't know how to do. She didn't know how to submit her homework through the learning management system. Yeah, so that's the two things that I wanted to share that would be helpful for stage one learners to engage them and to build up their confidence. Furthermore, ultimately to help them to improve their English language skills. I I wonder if anybody wants to share their experience with stage one or have any questions.
Yeni, I like what you were saying there, because again, it goes back to building up their confidence, right? So
Hmm.
connecting with your learner on something that she loves to do, like cooking, and when you can teach her those words, I think it just makes the language come alive. When
Yeah,
they
that's
when
true.
they can learn that way. Yeah, so I thought that was really good point. And you guys, I'm sorry, I need to apologize for something. When I was doing my presentation, my PowerPoint took up the whole screen, so I felt a little bit flustered. And on my last point, I made an error at my last point. So my last point was that we can encourage the use of their first language. Sometimes by using AI, they can actually we can actually translate some words into the first language, but minimally. But I think it's another good way to build up confidence. So, Yini, when you were talking there, I'm thinking how
Hmm.
we can take those words, and if they're stage one and they don't understand, we can show them, or we can just use AI or some other method to help them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, I remember when she told me that said I asked her, okay, can you introduce a recipe or your favorite food's recipe? She told me zigni. I said, oh, I don't know what is zigni. Then I open up Google and said, can you spell it for me? And I share the screen. Okay, I type it in, and I Google, and then I put it on the images. I said, so which one is zigni? They said, oh, this
fantastic.
one. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And what language is that, Yini? Signy, what language was
Uh,
that?
uh, Triguini or it's the language they spoke in what is the country called? Sorry, I'm
Eritrea?
not good at yes, yes, Eritrea.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay, interesting.
Triguini, I think, if I remember correct, Triguini. Yeah,
That could be, yeah,
yeah. So yeah,
fantastic.
if when it comes to certain names, I would just don't worry. Tell me how to how to spell it, or you can Google it, use your first language, and show me the picture. Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, and I think that will help them to feel respected, because when we show an interest in their
Hmm.
language and what they're doing, yeah, I think it's wonderful. And now that we'll be
Yeah.
teaching stage one, um, yeah, some things that we can remember for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, Ini. Well, thank you to a big thank you to Alexis, Blaine, and Ini for sharing their different types of tools and expertise, and how they're managing their stage one classroom. So what we hear is using simple tools, right? Familiarizing your learners with those tools and using them consistently. So we heard about Zoom, we heard about Google Docs, we heard about Teams. We also heard about various strategies around organizing their work and making their work a little bit more predictable. It's not so. Going back to Ini's comment or strategy around talking about routines or talking about something that they deal with every single day, right? So that's
Yeah.
important. The I really love Blaine's point about don't assume that they understand, right? Especially when you ask, "Do you understand?" No, show me that you understand. It's a very good point. And there are various ways of showing how they understand something that you ask them to do, even in a virtual environment, right? As basic as simple as just turn on your camera, show me what you're doing, right? As simple as that. I also loved the resources that Alexis shared with us in terms of how to organize and manage those classes with specific purpose for stage one learners. Very beneficial. And of course, we do want to use first language as a strategy, right? Especially with stage one learners. It can be used strategically when it's needed, especially at the times when those learners do not necessarily have an understanding, right, of the concept. And I like to use this example. If you've never seen an elephant in your life, it's very difficult to talk about one or describe one, right? So it's just your mind has no concept of elephant, and that's what can happen with our stage one learners or second language learners, both stage one and stage two. It's just sometimes there is no such a concept in their first language, so you want to make sure to show them a visual, one way or another way, so that they have an idea of what that concept of thing you were talking about specifically. Yeah. I am wondering if we have any thoughts to share. Maybe Ashley, if you have any thoughts to share, maybe if you've experienced stage one learning and would like to share, you're welcome to.
I actually had a question for the
Of
English
course,
Online crew
of
here.
course.
Um, are your students using artificial intelligence in the classroom? No, not at all.
No, no, unless the instructors tell them to do so. But we do have a policy that artificial intelligence is only used with instructor instruction. So we did have, I'm pretty sure as everybody else, as soon as ChatGPT came out and there were those advanced learners who decided that, oh, I can make my writing very pretty, right? So we caught those instances. We actually had a conversation with the learners about the fact that this is plagiarism, and one of our policies talks about that the plagiarism is prohibited. And we also talked about the downside of using those artificial intelligence tools to sort of substitute their own work, because we say, when it comes to exam time and it's going to be you versus your exam sheet and no artificial intelligence in front of you. So, if you want to kind of show your skills at the right time, so use the right learning strategies for that. So, of course, you can consult, but do produce your own work. Yeah.
So how are
I
you guys
want
monitor? Oh, I was just gonna ask, how are you guys monitoring that? Being like online and whatnot.
I'm gonna turn it to Blaine, Eni, and Alexis.
Well, Fortunately,
They're the experts.
fortunately, that's a really good point. There was one time when someone wrote something for an assessment, and I could tell it wasn't theirs. Like it
Oh
was so
yeah.
clear. But that was before I ever heard of ChatGPTs. But I still think that they got it from somewhere else, and I was able to say, I just came out and said, "Oh, next time when you write, can you write something of your own?" And
Mhm.
she didn't even say anything, so I knew that it was something that she had gotten from someplace else. But I feel like now, especially with the learners I've got, like it's really clear that that it's their writing. Like you can tell, right, if something, because there's the errors and all that kind of stuff. Luckily, I get the feeling that for most of my people, like most of my link learners that I've had, I've been fortunate that they all seem to be there because they want to learn. And I think they know that, if they use ChatGPT, they're not going to be learning. But yeah, that's been my experience. But I think that let's say, for example, if we are doing a writing assessment, I think that one thing that kind of helps, and I think it may be more psychological, is by having the camera on. Because you know what I mean? Because they know, even though we cannot actually see what they're doing, we can see them though. Do you know what I mean? So I think that might help. Yeah. Or better yet is quite often we use Google Documents. So we can actually, if they're writing something, we can see them as they write. That's one thing I've tried before as well. So if they're, it's a shared document, I can see, they can see. As they're writing, I can see exactly. So if suddenly this big flowery thing shows up on the document, okay, where did that come from? Yeah. So I think the Google document is a big help for that.
Well, you guys teach more one-on-one though, right?
Yeah.
It's
For the
not like
link only
group.
already, it's one-on-one. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
both, actually. So it
Oh, is it?
depends on the program, right? But Blaine and Alexis, they both in two types of programs. So group online and one-on-one online. Yeah.
And when you guys are group online, then are you still using the Google Docs and whatnot, or are you using other
For group
like
online, we
writing and
don't,
stuff?
yeah, for group online, we don't do assessments, so it's a informal program.
Okay.
And there is a classwork that is going on, and instructors sometimes use chats, for example, right? Like, well, perhaps a mini paragraph, put it in the chat. I am observing those classes here and there, just to see for different reasons, teacher training, see how students doing, right, to kind of get a sense. And I have not noticed anything that would be off. Let's say if it's a stage one class, and then they're all of a sudden there's like 7-8 writing, still be 7-8 writing, right? So I haven't seen that. Uh, what warms my heart is actually seeing some typos are one thing. Sometimes it's, you have your fingers are way faster than your thoughts are, so that's where typing the typos can come from. But then those grammar mistakes, when it's I has, right, those types of things. And this is really like, okay, this is actual learning. So we do want to see that because we can actually provide a real life feedback on that, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna give it back to Blaine and Alexis and Amy and Fox, your experience, please. Yeah.
Yeah. So one thing actually that I really appreciate about the drop-in classes that we do is that when the students do their work, it's optional. So you know that they're in it. They're not in it for a COB or some report. They're in it to improve. Yeah, which is a big help.
Okay.
Actually, what school are you teaching at, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm at Université de Saint-Boniface. I'm the coordinator there
Oh,
now.
fantastic.
So
Yeah.
we're actually or we've recently developed hybrid courses.
Hmm.
So part of the class is done in person, but part of it is also done online because we do recognize that our students or our learners have lives outside of the university, and they can't always be on site. But there's recently been talk about converting those classes to fully online. So that we could potentially reach some of our international students before they even come to Winnipeg.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So,
I think the Google document would solve any problem you're having
yeah.
with that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we've had with our placement test we were having issues where it was clear that it was AI, but without the actual proof we couldn't
Mm,
really do much about it.
yeah, it's difficult.
But actually this year we had a rash of students who, even though they know that it is plagiarism and whatnot, they're still like hiding their cell phones in their jackets and still using ChatGPT to kind of gain an advantage. And so I was just kind of curious what other programs, like what other approaches are being done to see if we can maybe integrate
Yeah,
some
it's
new.
definitely a challenge going forward, I
Yes.
think, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're dealing with a group of students who think like technology will solve it all. And it's like, no,
Well,
not with a
yeah,
language, guys. It's a muscle.
remember, yeah, remember that you can always, since you are at the university, you can always set up those. I remember the system we use at University of Winnipeg for final quiz or final exam
Mhm.
online, and so they would use University of Winnipeg use Nexus, or I'm pretty sure your university uses something similar, their internal student management system.
Yeah.
And then in there, you can set up those final exams. But you can also set up that, A, there is a time limit.
Hmm.
B, if they decide to search, so they click to add a tab their quiz collapses.
Yeah.
And if they wanted to continue, it does not start from zero, right? Let's say if they were at half a mark of the time, so they can log back in, everything is erased, but
Mhm.
they only have half of the time. And then what I notice, is that when I let students know that this is the case, right? So you put your priorities, whether you consult something, or time limit versus and your performance. They were opting in for time limit and performance rather than, I wanted to just double check with the resource. Yeah,
Yeah.
just
Yeah, we have a
another way of.
we do have a learning management system, but we're finding it to be a little glitchy because we're also integrating it into our
Okay,
new registration system.
okay,
And
okay.
so it's touch and go when if it decides it's going to work that day. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think briefly
But
we've gone back to the old-fashioned handwritten
yeah,
assignments just to kind of until things smooth out with our
yeah,
reintegration
yeah.
and stuff. So, but yeah, I'm always curious how other schools kind of deal with that question. Still seems like the Wild West out there with AI. So,
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm wondering, Alexis, if you had any trouble with doing online assessments with your one-on-one students.
I haven't had any trouble with my one-on-one students, because same with Blaine, I always use Google Docs, so I can always tell right away. For the drop-in classes, if they ever send me their homework, I can usually tell if it's, well, this is really good, almost suspiciously good. And then by then I would send them a message and say, like, hey, just so you know, if you want to get some really good feedback on your true writing, you can always send this to me again, resubmit it. And oftentimes they actually do, because I think what they really want is just feedback to improve. So there's
well,
not much feedback I can give if they've written something really well that isn't theirs. So,
mhm. When I was teaching our stage one learners, I would always tell them that I don't have a job if there's nothing for me to give you feedback on. So if you guys don't make mistakes, then I have no work to do. Yeah.
That's a great way to do it.
Yeah. I think
Yes.
that's yeah.
Amy, go ahead, please. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Oh, just thinking, my student. So I've heard, but it was not really that was really before the AI was there. So we heard that some students might ask help from their children or partner to do homework, but not really like um, using internet or AI, but since it was not there yet. But generally, this can be resolved after they know what we are doing in a class because we're using we are also implementing PBLA, so which means that we're collecting their artifact. Right, so not really that like this one assessment then decides whether or not you get to progress to the next level. It's more like day to day, you can feel that you're progressing through what you can do, what you cannot do, the can do statement, for example. And with my student, I always let them know what is your goal. So if you really want to learn English to find a better job, to be able to talk to your children's teacher, then you better just practice right now so you will be able to do those independently, because at that moment you will not have this convenience that they say that now I take out the phone, the teacher, can you just look at my phone, this is what I want to talk to you, right? So generally they understand, and reinforce that idea and what is your goal and what we do and how we can help you achieve that goal. They kind of all I never had problem with my students. that they're using technology or using help from their family members to do homework or assessment. While doing the assessment, like listening and speaking, is basically like a real time, unless like high level student that's take longer time to complete a writing or reading assignment. Basically, we're doing like in real time, like facing, they having the computer on, have their camera on. We're doing it together.
Good point, Yini. And it kind of reminds me of somebody.
Mhm.
I was at a conference once and somebody put it like this, talking about how kind of like when you were talking, when the
Mhm.
students are practicing their skills, whether it's writing or speaking, whatever it is, getting ready for that job interview. If they cheat their
Yeah.
way through, then they're not going to do well at the job interview. And they kind of put it like this. It's kind of like, you are trying to go for your black belt in karate or some other thing. And then they give you the paper, but then you go into that tournament and you have the paper, but you don't have the skills. So,
Oh. Yeah,
so it's
that's
kind of
not
like
gonna be
that.
fun.
Will not be fun. So, kind of similar situations, going
Yeah.
into an interview and not having the skills or having to write an email at work, and having to do it in that moment, it doesn't really help too much.
Mhm.
All right, folks. Thank you very much for your time and contributions and experiences. And it was an excellent session tonight. So we will be definitely sharing the recording of the session very soon. And I'd like to thank you all. And I'll also briefly pass it to Trevor, since you're back, Trevor, for a moment.
I wonder
Excellent.
who's winning that game.
Can you can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, I'm just echoing what Irina said, but thank you all for sharing and contributing with your expertise and then with the questions that were asked. The next PD that will be coming up, we'll be talking about how to use AI to create materials for skill building and skill using. So it's more from the teacher's perspective, but we could also maybe at the end ask some or have some information about what different institutions and individuals are doing to help prevent their students, if they're making them have several drafts and giving more emphasis on each draft process, it's, things like that, or the lockdown browsers like Irina mentioned. But again, thank you on behalf of TESL Manitoba. We hope that you all have a great night and look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks for our next PD. The last PD at the end of May, that will also then be on May 28th about just helping our students be ready as we go through the summer slump. Because we know in school or with the learning language that there's that time, if they're not regularly practicing, that it can slip away and they lose some of this fluency that they have. So those will be the two PDs coming up in May. So thanks, everyone. Appreciate you guys all attending. Send us any questions you have, and we'll see you at the next PD.
Thanks so much, Trevor. See you,
Thank you.
everyone.
Great seeing you
Thank
all.
you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Nice
guys.
to,
Jonathan.
good to see you guys.